subject matter this morning being the matter of family, I have to confess to you, it's a very serious matter to me. And I'd like you to do just a small exercise with me just for a minute. Would you just hold your hands in front of you just like this? I want you to look at your hands just for a minute. I bet you know them well, don't you? I bet you know how many fingers you have. I bet you can tell me the color of your creases. I bet you could list at least 10 families that you know are in crisis right now. I can, in the last 6 months. Every time you go to brush your teeth, from this day forward, I want you to look at your hands, just like you are right now. And I want you to remember those 10 families in crisis. Let's pray. Father, we would like to ask your special blessing on this moment, as we would just seek to focus our attention to one of the great battlefields that the enemy has put in his crosshairs and has decided to really eliminate from the plan of God. We ask for your blessing in Jesus' name. The reason why this is such a good burden is because as I was thinking this morning, praying this last several months, weeks, whatever, I began to think about all the different families, different couples, children that are going through crisis moments, spiritually speaking. And the problems are just all kinds. There's old-fashioned stubbornness, right? Just plain old stubbornness. I want what I want when I want it and how I want it, and that's all I want, and I don't want you to know anything else except what I want. Selfishness, right? Selfishness, pride. I have a right to be right, you know, and you have the right to hear me be right. I mean, those things just absolutely destroy the internal fabric and structure of family. Right? I think of the families that the children will not talk to the parents, and the parents won't talk to the children. I think of men and women that, in whatever way they've gotten there, have found the lust of the flesh to be a main staple of their normal diet. That shouldn't be, right? That should not be. And that causes a cascade effect that ripples through the entire family, and it comes out in various forms like ill temper. Men that lose their tempers. And you know what? It affects the whole family. How about just the whole idea of when illness hits your family? When suddenly there's a catastrophic event where illness has now crept in and taken center stage, and how do you respond to that? And how do you lead in that? And how do you help your children respond to that? How about when you lose your loved one? Crisis moments. It doesn't have to be all the time sin. It can just be the normal trials of everyday living. And as I look and hear about these various things that have happened, various things that are going on right now, 10 on my hands, I can count. I have to tell you that I'm very burdened. Aren't you? We should be. We should be. It's been well stated that the foundational building block of the assembly is the family. You know, that's really true. That's really true. So I began to think about the family and these matters and these things, and I'm very nervous about it because we have a large family. There's a lot of lives at our dinner table. In fact, if you come to eat dinner with us, you better come to eat, because you won't eat if you don't come to eat. But as I think about all those lives and all the different repercussion of generations that they will affect, I have to tell you, I tremble. I tremble at that, don't you? My children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, and all the various ways that they could positively or negatively affect the work of the gospel and the body of Jesus Christ, I begin to tremble. We're the next elder's going to come from? Where's that? From the catalog? How about the kitchen table? How about right there, huh? And the enemy is looking at every crevice and crack that he can possibly weasel in to destroy the family. And sometimes it's insidious, it's quiet, it's stealth, and it's just that little seed of bitterness, that little lie that we don't deal with, that little inconsistency in our soul. And the enemy is trying to wedge that out. And it may not be wedged at the beginning, it'll happen in a few years. See, that's the enemy. He's like, sometimes it's a direct frontal assault. You can't miss it. It's a 2x4 against the head. See, the enemy is definitely looking to kill, steal, and destroy the family. There's no doubt in my mind. Just look at your hands. You could list the names on your fingers. Maybe that's one of your families. Maybe that's your family today. As you sit, that is a crisis in your family. Maybe it's not the kids at your table or the spouse in your bed. It's actually your aunt or your uncle or your cousins. Maybe it's your extended family. You see, the enemy will take no prisoners. He will take us all out. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's actually true. It's not dramatic when it's true. It's true when it's true. I've been thinking about a man in the scriptures that took his family seriously. There's not many a record of this. You know, there's a lot of record of some pretty rough families. You know, growing up in Jacob's family would have been a toughie, I think. You know, what a dinner conversation. Hey, pass me the potatoes, you weasel. You know, that would have been a tough family. I think of Jacob's parents, you know, hey, listen to me, son. You know, I'll tell you how to lie to dad. That's not good family relations, right? That's bad stuff. But there's a man in the Bible that I admire. He went through a lot. In fact, he is so well known that the secular world will actually quote him and quote parts of his history, biblical history, in their normal everyday literature and communication. You've heard the phrase, the patience of Job. I don't even think half the world knows who Job is, you know. But Job was a tremendous family man. He did things right. I admire him. Let me have you turn to Job chapter 1 so we can see what he did right. I think that might be helpful for us today. Job chapter 1, and I'd like to begin reading, of course, in verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and shunned evil. We'll stop right there. When you talk about a family dynamic, I would submit to you that it's going to begin with the one the Lord put to be head in the home. Now, I don't mean that in a manner that speaks of hierarchy. I mean it in a manner that speaks of responsibility. That's what we miss when we talk about headship. It's responsibility. And this man so ordered his life that the four characteristics that featured the demeanor of his home, the atmosphere, the climate that he put into place on a regular basis were these four characteristics. Blamelessness. Now when you get home this evening, men, I want you to look in that mirror when you brush your teeth and ask the question, does God see me as blameless? Right? No, I know positionally you're blameless. I know that. But I'm talking about progressive. Are you blameless? Yesterday was a convicting day, wasn't it? I don't know what you thought about yesterday. It's a very unusual conference, right? We come, we meet to pray. Do you know, I heard 30 or 40 great, small little messages when the brothers prayed. Those were more convicting to me. No offense to Mr. Mike, but whenever I hear Mike preach, I'm always convicted. More conviction yesterday than I've ever heard. You know, those are 30 or 40 spontaneous moments in which my blamelessness was actually uncovered for what it really was, not blameless. Look what it says here. Another characteristic, he was upright, one who feared God, that quality of life that I think we've fumbled. What is the fear of the Lord? I don't know. I guess it's kind of when I'm just frightened. No, it's not. There's a kind of dynamic relationship that happens encapsulated in this phrase, the fear of the Lord. And for whatever reason, it was incredibly important to the early church, and it seems to be incredibly important to the head of the home, and it seems to be incredibly important to permeate in the pores of each family's soul. Job did this. This is what characterized his family. Look at what it said. He shunned evil. You know, I have to say to you that sometimes I embrace evil. You ever sit down and you're going to say, well, let's just sit down. We'll just watch something. And the next thing you know, some obtuse, wrong commercial goes flying across the TV, and you feel like all the eyes are looking at you. Dad, you have the remote. Okay? Such a cultural reference, I understand, but shunning evil is not a TV moment. It's a way of life. It's a way of life. This is what was in Job's life. This is what he brought to his family. This was what they ate and drank at the kitchen table. These were the priorities he set for his family. Of course, these are the priorities, as sampling of priorities that we might set. Now, Job had a lot of kids. I think he had 10 roughly, 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also, his possessions were 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, about 1,000 for each kid. 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east, meaning that Mesopotamian region. And his sons would go, and they would feast in their houses. So there's a very prosperous ranching and family business. The sons each had apparently their own home, and I would imagine they would have been very close to the main house of the father. They would go and they would have their moments of celebration. It says each on his appointed day. What day was that? That was probably their birthday. Does anybody have any birthdays around here? Hey, we have so many birthdays in our house. We basically have a cake a month. Right? I get this. This is busy. I'm sure the Bjorleys can appreciate it. Each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So it was. Now this is key. We go back to the very first verse where it says, blamelessness and upright, shunning evil, fearing God. This is how a man acts when he's characterized by these features. This is what he does. And so it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job, no one else, singular, one name, Job would sin and sanctify them. How did he do that? How did he set them apart? He would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. That means he left no one out. For Job said, it may be, it might be, that my sons have sinned and cursed God where? In their hearts. And this Job did regularly. I would like to submit to you there are 4 characteristics, 4 outcomes of a man that fears God, that shuns evil, that is upright and blameless. 4 practices, 4 features of his practice, if I may. Number 1, I'd like to suggest that he had concern. That's part of the problem in our families. We as fathers, maybe as mothers too, we just going to get zoned in on the process and procedure of raising the children, making sure they have food, making sure they get to bed on time, making sure they brush their teeth, making sure they keep their elbows off the table. That's a big challenge in our home. Making sure we're doing all the little things right, and we miss the big spiritual picture. Job had concern. Look at what it says. That Job would sit, that after the days of feasting had run their course. That was like a light, a caution light to him. After this party is done, I don't know what may or may not go on in the heart of those at the party, but I will do something about it. I will have a spontaneous spiritual concern for their well-being. Oh, listen, is that characteristic of our lives when it comes to the Christian family? Sometimes we act more like the kings of the Old Testament, where we're just happy it didn't affect me, but it'll have to affect the next generation. You know, that's not a good thing. It's invaluable to see the spiritual picture and the drama of the moment. And I'm afraid that many a times we will miss that because, well, the affairs of everyday life kind of take up a lot of our time, attention, right? I know what that's like. Even this conference, I'm getting calls from the hospital all the time. We got this problem, we need this. And you know what? I feel the element of my strength being siphoned off to something that'll perish, and I hate it. I just hate that. But that happens regularly, doesn't it? We get too exhausted, our emotions are too worn out, our bodies are too tired, and we come to the end of the day, and the last thing we want to hear about is how the little guy needed mom's direct spiritual intervention for their lives, and the last thing we want to do is get up off the couch and handle it, right? That's exactly what it's like. Spiritual concern. That's a challenge for me, isn't it? It's a challenge for you. You see, we can't exist. We cannot begin to impact, I think, the family as God would have us if we don't have a concern. We're not just trying to get through. We are trying to make disciples. Amen. We are not just trying to survive. I intend to evangelize every child in my home and make them a sacrifice to the living God. I intend that to happen. I will make that my goal, and I will die trying for that, won't you? This is not just sort of passivity. We get through another phase. We go on to the next level of the American dream or whatever dream you have. Oh, no. I intend to proselytize my children. No doubt about it. Aren't you ashamed of that? Nope, not at all. Don't you think somebody will say something about it? Yes, they will. And aren't you going to be hauled into the court of law? Arrest me now. But I will be concerned about their spiritual well-being. What else did he do? Well, notice this. He was conscientious about this. He would rise early in the morning. He was concerned, but he was conscientious. You know, it's so easy to have concern, but the conscientiousness about it, that drive that gets you up so bothersome that you'll wake up early in the morning to deal with the issue that might have occurred. The conscientiousness of soul. That's pretty important, isn't it? I'll tell you, some days, these days, God wakes me up quite early. I was visiting with the men staying in my house. We all seem to have that same plight. We wake up early. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was the coffee we give them at midnight. I don't know. But the point is that there needs to be a concern that reaches to conscientiousness so that there is a consistency of life, but that conscientiousness, that moment when you're there in that bed and you feel the tug at your heart, maybe you should get up and go to your closet to pray. In that moment you say, oh, I'll just wait for the next snooze. I'll be just 5 minutes. You know, 5 turns into 15, 15 turns into 20. And the next thing you know, there is no more time. Right? Has anybody done that besides me? What else is there? Well, there's concern, there's conscientiousness. There's a word I like, it's a tough one. Cognizant. He was cognizant. What does that mean? I don't know. I just found it in the dictionary. No, what it means is that he was thinking it through. Look what it says. For Job said, it might be. It's just a possibility. It could have, I don't know if it happened, but it just could have happened that maybe without actually saying it publicly to the brothers and sisters in the room, that one of my sons could have actually cursed God internally. No one would know it, and that would be his spiritual demise. I will take care of that. I will sanctify them. I will offer offerings on their behalf. I mean, wow. I'm not sure I think that way. My child might have cursed God when they were at class and agreed with that philosophy professor, and I'm just going to... Who thinks like that? I tell you who thinks like that. A man who fears God. A man who shuns evil. A man who walks uprightly. And a man who is blameless. He has concern. He has conscientiousness for his children, for his family. He is cognizant of the potential that could easily erupt in the home. Oh my goodness, so much of that happens in the home. And you watch and you study and you look at your wife and you look at your children as you see them and you see, that's a crack the enemy can exploit. I must pay spiritual attention to that very wedge, that very little seam in their soul. Is that normal? No, that is normal. That is what a man of God does. This is the battlefield for the family. I love how Job did it. Oh, they could have said something. I can't stand the thought of that. That would be such a confrontation. It says he was consistent. And this he did regularly. After this week, we'll all go back to our places, our huts. And we'll exist in those confines of regularity and demands of secular jobs or whatever we do. And this moment runs the risk of being lost. And what commitments we have given God and our souls, even last night, today, to be consistent and regular, will be attacked by the enemy, and it will be attacked by the demands of other things. Job did not let that happen regularly. I would submit to you that we would probably go home and do this maybe once or twice, but is it going to be regular? Is it going to be consistent? I know I speak from personal experience. My friends, the family is in harm's way. Have you been to the closet of prayer just for your family in the last 72 hours? Have you been to the closet of prayer for your family, for your extended family, in the last 164 hours, 1 week? Have you been to your private place where God sets up his position to meet you for your family and extended family and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and those who might marry into your family in the last 30 days? And if the answer is, well, I can't really remember, then the answer is no. The answer is no. I believe that what we do today will be one of the most important we do on any Wednesday of the year. And that is ask the Lord to deal with our families. Look at your hands. You know 10 people? You know 10 families that are crying out for mercy? That are so mad at each other they don't even know how to breathe air in the same room? Do you know men or women that have so convoluted the facts that they've made themselves justified no matter what is said to them? Do you know children that are caught in heroin and cocaine? Do you know parents who cannot turn off the computer? Do you know men or women that are having affairs this hour? You see, the family is very important to the heart of God. It is the most common terminology God uses to describe the people of God in all of the New Testament. Brother, sister, father, mother, family, one name. It's the most consistent Plentiful term used. It's a dear concept to him. And it's not just your immediate family, it's your extended family. Remember how Abraham prayed? He prayed for Lot the nephew. I don't know if Lot was my nephew. No offense to my nephew who lives in my home. But I might let him go. Okay? I mean, the guy's he's kind of a crook himself, right? Kind of, hey, Uncle Abraham, how about I take the best and you take the worst? How's that for you? I'm thinking, yeah, good, see ya. Not going to be ya. There are times in which you've been wronged by your family, and they need you to be an Abraham. They need you to intercede when the wave of judgment is coming down, as Abraham did that moment when he had that private conversation in Genesis 18 with Jehovah. And Jehovah even said, shall I tell Abraham what I'm going to do? Because he will order his family aright. And he makes a decision to tell Abraham what he's going to do. And in so doing, Abraham petitioned Jehovah for the benefit of Lot and his family. I'm not sure I would have done that. But you see, some of the families that need you most right now are the relatives that frosted you the worst. That's what we need to be about today. Family. So, as we go through today, this morning, I know many of us will be bowing our heads. And you're going to do like I do. I'm going to bury my head in my hands. And I'm going to number them off. And pray for those families. Maybe it's your family right now. Maybe you and your spouse and you and your children, or vice versa, have so much dirt and garbage between you that that's where you must begin. Our goal is blamelessness, uprightness, fearing the Lord, and shunning